Welcome to Talkin' Waukesha, the podcast where every conversation springs to life.
I'm Andrew Nofke.
And I'm Anthony Terrell.
And we're your hosts for today's journey into the heart of Waukesha.
Whether you're a local or just passing through, join us as we explore the stories, people, and hidden gems that make Waukesha truly special.
From community events to personal anecdotes, we're here to bring you the pulse of our vibrant town.
So grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and let's dive into another episode of Talkin' Waukesha,
where every conversation springs to life. All right, welcome to another episode of Talkin' Waukesha. Today we are joined by City Administrator for the City of Waukesha, Anthony Brown.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
So, do you prefer Tony, Anthony?
Tony.
Tony,
please,
all right.
Please.
So, Tony, you've been here for just about 6 months.
Yeah.
Actually, 6 months and
Couple days.
8 days
Yeah.
or something like that?
Yeah.
How you liking it so far?
Excellent. It's been an adventure, a challenge, everything that I kind of hoped for when I was interviewing for the position.
Good. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background and upbringing? What brought you from where you were growing up to where you are now as city administrator?
Yeah, so I've been living the I-41 life, as I say.
Mm-hmm.
So grew up in Appleton, Wisconsin. I was probably a typical, in a way, 80s kid that had parents that were divorced. And part of that ended up with me. I actually was born in Milwaukee, but then moved up to Appleton.
Mm-hmm.
And family full of police officers, but probably for kind of my upbringing, generally suburban kind of lifestyle, rolling around on my Dyno GT. You guys ever remember Dyno bikes, like BMX bikes?
Okay, yeah.
I'm
a little
not
too
a
young
clue.
right there.
Yeah. Well, I'm aging myself already. This is awesome.
Yeah, only a little bit. It's all right.
Yeah. And that was really kind of what I did, just kind of roaming around the neighborhood and stuff with friends, which was awesome because it kind of gives you that independence, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, graduated from Appleton West, go Terrors, and came down here.
The Terrors?
Yeah, the Terrors. It's a fox that's dressed up with like a sweater that says T on it.
Like Terror?
Yes. I don't know how that started. It's very odd, but...
And why it's a fox? Or
yeah, Fox River.
Okay, all right,
kind of like our fox.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Yeah. Came down here, went to UWM, and got an undergrad in political science and thought I would go to law school. And then really reflected on that and thought, does the world really need another lawyer in the world? So then I kind of switched directions, and it was around 2008, so the Great Recession was in full force. And decided that I was going to either become a firefighter or go to grad school for public administration. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up going to grad school for my master's in public administration, started working for the city of Waukesha, and stayed there for roughly 7 years working in the city administrator's office, which was a great experience. I started out as an intern. Actually, me and the mayor did an orientation today with a bunch of interns, so I was telling them that that's how I got my career started out. And I remember the first task that the city administrator asked me to do is he gave me City of Waukesha's budget, which is probably like 200 or 300 pages.
And a small document.
Yeah, small document. And said, go through this and tell me what are the city's priorities. And I've held that in my mind till this day because really a budget is a reflection of where a community's priorities are. And it's also kind of a storytelling document about kind of the good things that a municipality is doing.
Yeah,
so,
I kind of like that idea as a practice of taking, let's take someone who's got a generally outside view and say, based on what you're reading here, based on the documented evidence, what is most important to the city?
Right. Worked there for a number of years, then went back up to the Appleton area and became a town administrator. Worked there in Buchanan, which is just east of Appleton. It's an urban town. Worked there for about 3 years, and the big issues there were really just transportation system and drainage. So they were trying to figure out how do we deal with these stormwater issues we're having, and then also how do we rebuild our transportation system. So that was certainly a good foray into things to come. I can recall at one town meeting that there was probably about 300 people that showed up.
That's quite a few.
Yeah, because we were talking about what's called a transportation utility fee and whether or not to implement that. And I can talk about that a little bit later as well. And then came back down here and served as the city administrator for Port Washington for about three and a half years. And that was a great experience in that we got to really look at some specific things related to public safety and thinking about the future of that for the city. Because what's happening kind of nationwide is there's a shortage of volunteer EMS responders, and the city was certainly experiencing that. And we went through the process of identifying that if we didn't do anything, that our ability to respond to calls, that response time would continue to increase. So what we did in response to it was move forward with a referendum. And that actually just passed in April to add a bunch of full-time firefighters.
Very nice.
And then came here, and I've been here, as you said, a little over 6 months. Started November 20th, to be exact. And it's been certainly a ride already.
Hopefully a good one so far.
It's been an awesome ride. Ups and downs, and I think the thing that I'm most excited about, and I think this is generally a lot of places that I've worked, is just the amount of commitment that employees have here to the community, and I think that really shows itself through any department that I've worked with.
To give some light on to the public, maybe on what you do. So, as a city administrator, what
So what is it you say you do here?
I had the same thing for the mayor, because when I had first started, I was like, I don't actually fully know what the mayor does.
Yeah.
And I mean, the mayor we see a lot more, but you're more behind the scenes than the mayor is. Mayor's the face of the city. You're not so much. So do you want to go to?
I like it that way too. I don't want to be the face of the city by any means. But that's a great question, because I often tell people that I'm a city administrator, and they're like, okay, well, what does that actually mean? So the probably quickest kind of analogy I can say is comparing it to like a private business, where there's the CEO, which is the mayor, and then the COO, the chief operations officer, which is essentially what my position functions as. So overseeing the day-to-day responsibilities of the departments within the city. So that could be any amount of different things on a day-to-day basis. What does it mean? It means being probably in a lot of meetings, talking about a lot of different things, whether that's moving forward with different development projects, what a TIF could look like, and whether or not it's something that we can incentivize. It could be a personnel issue in a department that we're addressing. It could be any amount of different things. And I would say primarily, though, it's functioning within two areas: personnel management, and then also just kind of the finance side of things, looking at budgets, making sure that we're hitting targets. But then the other thing, too, is the strategic plan. So that's one of the things I know we'll talk about here in a second. But one of the things that's unique for Waukesha is that the city administrator is also the emergency management director, which is not customary for a lot of other communities. So that's been something that I've had the opportunity to dig into a little bit more, and we'll be putting an emphasis on that over the next year or two, trying to be in a more proactive stance if something should happen. So I think in reflecting on that, that's one of the parts of my job that I like the most, is like I'm continuously learning about stuff. And one of the things I always like to think, and this is thinking about hiring people, I always want to have a team around me of people who are smarter than me, right? Because they always have, and I think that is the case for a lot of the department directors here for sure, is they're the experts in their field. They're the people who know how their departments function, what will work, what won't work, how their employees will react to things, how the public will react to things. So they're always, who we lean on for those given areas. But again, that is one of the things that I love about my job is I just am continuously learning something, and I didn't know that I would ever have been a emergency management director. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So what is the emergency management director? What is that kind of role? Just high level. What does that kind of entail?
Yeah, so it's making sure that the city's in a position where if something were to happen, that we have plans for how we're going to react to it. So making sure that everybody has the appropriate training, that we have identified people for certain responsibilities.
So a lot of kind of like the FEMA roles that are laid out.
Yep, exactly.
So we may have like in case aliens show up, how we first contacted kind of things, or is that something coming in the
I mean, I mean, if aliens show up, I don't know. We might all be amazed.
Yeah, I think we gotta have that first contact protocol. You may be the first person that you get the handshake or
Yeah.
All of the world, the aliens choose Waukesha, Wisconsin, and they choose Tony.
Well, why wouldn't you? I mean, come on, this is the place to be, right, guys?
Yeah,
it's true.
It's always in the news. I mean, constantly.
Yeah. Well, there's actually an article recently about, I think it's somewhere in Texas, where these guys see like people who are like cloaked, and they think it's like aliens or something. Like, oh, okay.
Well, that's Texas for you, right?
Yeah.
Texas, Florida.
Yeah. That's just that's just normal news.
It's just an everyday occurrence there.
Another cloaked person sighting.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched on this, but did you always want to be a city administrator? Or, I mean, you had mentioned that you were potentially going down the route of going down fire. I mean, you've got a family background of public safety. Is that something that's always kind of been in the back of your mind of something to do?
It's actually funny because I can recall being like 16, 17, 18, and one of the questions that was always asked is like, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And it's like, I don't know. I'm just a kid in high school, and I just want to go to college and hang out with my friends for a while, right? So I don't think I ever had necessarily aspirations, but it was one of those things where I took a class with a professor named Dennis Hatch, and he made it sound so interesting and fascinating that it really prompted me to consider it as a career. And I think the other thing, to be quite honest, was the fact that I knew, based on kind of the demographics of city administrators, that in the coming years there would be a lot of opportunities available, and that has certainly proven itself out, especially when you look at like candidate pools for city administrator positions. But I think that's a wider kind of issue that we're seeing generally with a lot of different jobs, is that there's really not a whole lot of people that are necessarily qualified to fill them. So that's why one of the things that I think is important to me is making sure that we maintain and enhance the organizational culture that we have to retain people, but also to recruit people when there are positions that are open.
Yeah, and I know that's been a huge push that you've been here, is making sure that employee recruitment and retainment has been in kind of the forefront. Is like, we have a lot of talented people here. How do we make sure that they stay here?
Yes.
And keep the residents of Waukesha, moving forward with people, instead of having to, pull back a little bit, train new people, and then be back into full force again.
Right. Which I think for the most part, the city has done a fantastic job. If you look across the city, we certainly have openings. But that, I think, has more to do with the fact of people seeking like promotional opportunities.
Yeah,
definitely.
So then, what would you say is your favorite part of working for the city then?
I think it's honestly been just getting to build relationships with people and getting to know employees. That's one of the things that I really value, and that's kind of the way that I think I'm able to do my job at a high level, is just building relationships with people and understanding their perspective, and really taking that into consideration as I kind of navigate making decisions or understanding kind of what are the impacts of doing one thing versus the other thing. So I think it's just, again, getting to know everyone here. That's been probably the most enjoyable so far.
Yep. All right. So recently, the council has excuse me, the council adopted the city strategic plan for 2024 to 2029. If anyone needs to view that, it is available online at waukesha-wi.gov/strategic plan. What do you see as the next steps for the city to achieve the goals that are laid out in this plan and kind of make this goal more of a reality?
Yeah. So there is 4 strategic directions. One of them is financial sustainability. So that certainly fits into the discussion that we've been having recently about the cost to continue our financial management plan. So Joe, the finance director, we've went around and talked to all of the workforce about kind of where we're at. And coming up with a plan to address the projected shortfalls that we see in the out years of that forecast. So that's something that we're already actively pursuing. But I would say on a larger macro scale, looking at the entire plan, probably the next step is to really identify kind of what is the implementation framework for this.
Right.
So what's the processes that we need to put in place? How are we going to be intentional about making sure that the work is seeing progress and that we're also updating not only the council but employees along with the public. So I anticipate probably in the next month or two kind of working out kind of what that looks like just from kind of a draft standpoint and then really working with department directors to finalize how we as a team are going to pursue implementing that. And then as far as kind of follow-ups, what we've talked about with the council is that on a quarterly basis, we would just provide a report to them. I don't know if it's going to be verbal or if it's going to be in writing, maybe a combination of both. And then after that, there will be kind of a year-end report that shows the progress of how we've been moving forward. But kind of the concept is that there's the city strategic plan, then there's department strategic plans, and then everything kind of flows down from there. So for employees, there should be some component of their job performance that then links back to the departmental or city strategic plan.
Right. And I'd come from the private sector prior to this job, and that was something that we always had is here's the goals of the organization. Set your own personal goals that reflect off of something on that greater goal. So I've read over the strategic plan a little bit. I haven't fully read it, cover to cover quite yet. Yeah. But it's nice to have this goal and the endeavor of let's make sure that we're being intentional in what we're doing and we're being transparent with the public of here's where we're doing well, here's our shortcomings, here's what we're doing to shore up those shortcomings.
Yeah, and I think that's an important piece right there is like how do we show to taxpayers like the value they're getting for the dollars that they give to the city in property taxes. And I think if we can do things like that, show strategic plan reporting, year-end reports, looking at capital projects, reflecting on all the good things we do, I think that's a good story to tell and one that we should be proud of and try to share in as many ways as we can.
Yeah, and one of the things I was, when we were initially talking about the strategic plan, just like with employees, I was thinking, what does the perfect government look like? In a weird way, it's almost like the government isn't there. If your services are being done, if your public safety isn't being inhibited in any way, like everything's just happening behind the scenes and you don't notice government being government.
Right.
And it's kind of a weird thought of like, if government's going well, you don't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you would mostly want to think it would be the opposite.
Right.
Right. Exactly. And I think you see that often is that people usually don't express opinions unless there's something that is out of the ordinary, I guess I'll say.
Yeah.
So I think by and large, we hear concerns that are brought to our attention and we address those promptly. But I think based on the survey results from the community survey, the citizens certainly think we do a quality job at a high level.
Definitely.
Well, so then, kind of connecting that to, you presented to the Common Council the results of the National Community Survey, which can also be available to view online at waukesha-wi.gov/NCS. So how do you use that information in tandem with the strategic plan that is being developed to continue to make Waukesha a great place to live, work, play?
Yeah. So I think from a process standpoint, what we'll do in the future is we'll do the survey before we actually do strategic planning. And we're trying to get on, and we're in a cycle, I would say, of doing the survey every couple years. Because really that serves as the report card for the city and how we are doing, what things we're doing well, and as you pointed out, Andrew, before, what things maybe we're falling short on.
Right.
So how that, in my mind, and I think best practice is that you take the results from the survey and you do reflect on, okay, well, what are the things that we're doing well? What are the things that we're not doing well? What are the things that the citizens think should be the city's priorities? And then really try to figure out how that gets weaved into the strategic plan. I think we are fortunate that the results really reflected a lot of what was already in the strategic plan.
Right.
But at the same time, I think there's a reflection too that the strategic plan is meant to be kind of iterative. It's meant to be ever changing. So if we go year to year and there's things that need to be changed, it can be changed. And I think that as we're going through this 5-year strategic plan, and we get to a midpoint of doing another survey, if there's things in there where we're totally kind of off the mark, then we can just adjust accordingly to reflect that. I think the other piece to this too is that we should probably celebrate the things that we're doing well. I think too often we focus on, and I think this is just human nature, right?
Right.
You focus on kind of the negative things.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we focus on the positive things and maybe even amplify those so they get even better? So I think that's part of it as well, is certainly working on the things that we're maybe not as good at, but then also celebrating the things that we do very well.
Yeah. And I think that's something that also you've brought to the city, that's like that idea of let's celebrate what we've done. It's not just, okay, we've done this, let's move to the next thing. It's, we've done something, here's our accomplishments, here's why we need to be celebrating. And it's it helps morale for sure. I mean, even like the smallest task of, you send out letters to each of the employees saying, thank you for being here for another year of service. And, it's a nice gesture.
Yeah.
But like, it's still, you get it and it's like, okay, yeah, I'm being appreciated for being here for another year.
Yeah.
And it's nice.
I think that's, it's right, appreciation. And I think that's, it's hard. And I admittedly fall short of this quite frequently, but it's important to show people that you appreciate what they're doing. And sometimes we get kind of mired in the day-to-day stuff.
Exactly.
Instead of just taking a step back for a moment, taking a breath, and really recognizing kind of all the good things that have happened. And I think it's hard, too, because it's like, I don't know, there's that Wisconsin humble, right? And it's like, is it bragging? Is it not? I don't know. I don't think it's bragging. I think it's just recognizing, like, hey, we're doing a good job.
Yeah, just taking pride.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I like that, taking pride.
Yeah. I mean, it's always hard for people. It's like you always get a thank you, and you always want to say, oh, yeah, no problem, no worries. And it's like, but no, it's like it's not that it's not a problem, but like genuinely take it in for a moment and appreciate that that thank you is just more than just another. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, right.
You've done what you're supposed to be doing. Good job. Keep doing that.
Keep doing it. Yeah.
Status quo kind of things.
Yeah.
So can you share with us a memorable moment or experience from your time as city administrator, town administrator, wherever that's been significant, that's had a significant impact on you?
Yeah, I think coming back to the town of Buchanan, so it's an urban town. A lot of it was developed probably in like the 90s. So they're getting to a point where they need to replace a lot of their roads, and then there's also this drainage issue throughout a lot of the township. So there's this ongoing discussion that they were having for years about, well, how do we replace this and also deal with kind of stormwater issues? So what we came up with was a 10-year basically plan for improving the roads and the drainage. And partially to fund it, we were going to implement a transportation utility fee. And we had a meeting to talk about it at a town meeting. And like I said, like 300 people showed up, and there was probably about 150 that supported it and 150 that were totally against it. And I think one of the biggest things that I took away from that was that decision making is hard, but as long as you know you're doing it for the right reasons and you've considered all the different factors involved, then you just have to move forward with making that decision and understand that you're not going to make everyone happy. And that's just kind of the way life works sometimes, is you're not going to be able to appease every single person in the world. But as long as you're doing kind of the right thing for the right reasons, that everything will be okay.
Right. Yeah, if you live your life as just trying to please everyone, you're never going to get anywhere. So you kind of
exactly.
You sometimes just have to push things along and not even like hope for the best, because you've done the research at this point to know like this will work out. Things will little pain at the front, but it'll be fun. It's like it's a flu shot. It'll sting for a second, but after that you'll be better off for it in the long term.
Yeah, and there's always going to be someone, no matter what you do. Anytime someone's going to be against it in some way, shape, or form.
The funny part about that is, so we implemented the transportation utility fee, and then it got challenged by an organization called WIL, which I think is Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty, I believe is what the acronym stands for. And it went all the way up to the state Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court invalidated the whole thing and said that it was a tax, not a fee. So they ended up having to get rid of it anyway. But that's still something that I think some villages and cities are looking at, because the laws that apply to towns are not the same as villages and cities.
It's just right on the cusp. So in terms of, I guess, describing a town, is it just population that makes a town versus a village versus a city?
No, it's surprisingly not, because as an example, up in Appleton, there's the town of Grand Chute, and it's probably 40,000 residents, and then there's other cities throughout the state where it's less than that. So I think it's really a reflection of kind of what type of community you want to be, so to speak, and whether or not you want to incorporate and be a village or a city. And there's a variety of reasons why you may or may not want to do that. And I think certainly communities reflect on that and make a decision whether or not to continue to be a township or be another form of a municipality. But I think, coming back to Buchanan, I think the funniest part about the whole thing, and maybe one of the things that I'm, somewhat sad about, is the fact that they're still having discussions about roads and how to fund them till this day. So
they had a solution and they fought it, and they're still...
So as much as sometimes like things move forward, there are different roadblocks, I guess I would say, in the way that kind of push the conversation back to where it otherwise was, which is the unfortunate part of the whole thing.
And I bet there's some people that are like, I wish that pothole wasn't there, but,
Well, that's what it boils down to, right, is what's the community's expectations and what do they want them to be?
Yeah. Makes sense.
All right. I'm going to switch it up. We've done some very serious questions now. Let's get some more fun questions, more exciting things. Let me know more about who Tony Brown is.
Oh, snap.
All right. So what is the most adventurous thing that you've ever done?
Adventurous thing. So graduated from college, and me and a buddy decided that we were going to go backpacking in Europe. So we went backpacking for about, 2 months, and went to Barcelona, Where else did we go? Paris, Amsterdam, Florence, Rome, Venice. Where am I forgetting? I'm trying to think what other places. Then we went to Berlin, to a small German town called Gießen, Frankfurt. So we just kind of backpacked throughout Europe, and I don't know that we had necessarily a plan. We were just like, oh yeah, come on, let's go do this. It's like,
Did you speak any of the languages? Of
no, not at all, not at all. And I remember we got stuck in Barcelona one day when we were going to take the train to Paris, and I don't know if you guys know a lot about France, but they often have boycotts and protests and whatnot. So the union was striking that day, and there was no train operations. Oh. So we were trying to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to get there? So we took a Ryanair flight that was like 30 euros and flew there. And it was a short flight, but it was probably the scariest flight I've ever been in my life.
I've heard stereotypes about Ryanair, and it's very much of a you get what you pay for kind of experience.
Yes, 100%.
There's a comedian that says, like, they play a fanfare at the end of it, and it's a celebration that, hey, we made it here alive kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, you're, like, just squished in there as tight as can be. And then on top of that, like, I wasn't sitting next to my friend. It was, like, two random people, and I happened to be in the center. And there was just this turbulence where it's going up and down, like, 10, 15, 20 feet. And I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to live. Are we going to die here? But luckily we landed there and got to be in Paris. Yeah.
It's one way to get there, and it's a fun enough story, I suppose, for it.
Yeah, I guess.
So another fun question is, if you could instantly become an expert in any skill or hobby, what would it be and why?
I would become a behavioral economist, because at the heart of it, every decision we make has some kind of like economic piece to it. And it's just fascinating to me, the decisions that people make, and a lot of times against probably what is in the best for them. So there's like a sociological piece to it too, that I just get fascinated by kind of groupthink and like I don't know, like social media as a phenomenon, and the idea that, so there's this guy named Derek Thompson that talks about he actually has a podcast too that's called Plain English, and one of the recent episodes is he's talking about like, are we a society of cults because of kind of how we can create our own echo chamber of like things that we're interested in. So just some of those sociological but also kind of behavioral pieces would be fascinating to study.
So do you like more of the economic side of that side, or is it both the psychological and economics combined? Okay.
Both. Yeah. What about you guys?
This has never been fired back on us.
For me, so I mean, if I could become an expert in any skill or hobby, so I mean, my passion is music.
Music?
Yeah. So I would love to. My dream job had always been to be the saxophonist on SNL.
Okay.
Like at the end when they're just going crazy.
All right,
like I
sense.
always, like that's my primary instrument. And I love jazz, so like I thought that would be so cool because you'd probably meet so many celebrities and so many musicians. Like it would be an awesome opportunity.
So have you seen the movie Yesterday?
No, I haven't, but I know of it.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it.
Would you then? Because what is it? He becomes like
something
Beatles
happens and the Beatles stop existing in the world, and he has to try and recreate all the Beatles music from scratch, and he starts rising to fame because people love the music he's creating, but no one knows it's the Beatles music because the Beatles don't exist.
Okay. So would you be that guy?
I don't know.
If you could?
Maybe.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, no, that is
if you like the
on my
Beatles,
list.
go for it. If you don't, then you can kind of skip it.
Exactly. What about you?
So ever since I was a kid, I kind of had this weird cartoony personality, basically.
Yeah.
So in the back of my mind, I think being a professional voice actor for a cartoon would be very cool. But also at the same time, doing something along like Jim Henson-y kind of thing, where it's.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like Family Guy, like
no,
or something like that.
I mean, I'll take the opportunity if it was there, but I'm not, But like, yeah, if like I tried drawing as a kid, was not great at the animation side of stuff. But I've always had this kind of cartoony personality. But yeah, like almost like a kids cartoon, kids Muppety kind of things. Like if I could do a voice for that, that's kind of I have the skill, but if I could just get to that expert level, that's
right.
kind of the one that's there. Otherwise, I think probably something with music too, because just got a guitar for the first time, and I'm like, I can kind of strum along and do some things, but giant fingers are not conducive for music.
10,000 hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know.
Right?
Yeah, I've been curious if I'm close to my 10,000 hours because I've been playing my saxophone since I was in 5th grade. So I don't know how many years I'm at, like 12, 13 years or whatever. So.
I'm at about 4 hours right now.
Yeah.
So getting close.
That's awesome.
All right, next one. What is the most unusual or interesting job that you've had?
I don't know. I don't know that I've had a whole lot of unusual or interesting jobs. My first job, believe it or not, was at McDonald's. And maybe the most interesting or fun job prior to getting into city management was I worked for a party rental company.
Okay.
Setting up tents for events. And that was a lot of fun with
like giant tents,
giant tents.
Like the ones that need like the post in the middle, like those kind of big.
Yeah, post in the middle. You got to sew the pieces of the tent together. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun because I worked with a group of guys that I went to college with. So we got to set up tents and kind of bomb around in box trucks, and that was pretty awesome.
Oh, good.
I got to work at Rogan Shoes too. So I was a shoe sales guy for a while. Mm-hmm. That was great too.
You see, are you a shoe guy? Are you into?
I love shoes, but my wife is very. She frowns upon me buying shoes. So.
Do you have more pairs of shoes than she does?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I have more shoes than my girlfriend.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But then I know for a fact I got it from my mother because my mother is a shoeaholic.
Is she?
Yeah. Okay. She's got a whole closet just dedicated to her shoes.
I'm more of a shoe for function kind of a guy. Wear them until they die and then get a new pair.
That's my brother.
I think I've got like one dress pair, one semi-casual pair, one casual pair.
Sure.
Or like a gym shoe. And then, of course, you got the mowing the lawn shoes that are going to last forever.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, my brother, he'll wear his shoes until like there's basically no part of the sole left. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, why are you doing that? It's like, because they still work.
Yeah. The last time I got a new pair of shoes is because I found out by walking through a rain puddle that there was a hole in the bottom. Just walking like, why is my sock wet? All right, new shoe time.
New shoe time.
Conveniently, I was at Meijer, so that was, problem, given problem, solution right ahead of me.
Yeah, right there.
Economic decision, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what's something about yourself that most people might not know about you?
Oh, gosh.
Finally, I'm glad we got a question that kind of stumped you.
Yeah.
Because most people do kind of they think for a couple seconds and then.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something. Huh. I don't know that I could come up with something.
Or maybe it's something that you collect or something that you're really into. We kind of already talked about. Or I mean, like what about maybe like current hobbies that you have?
So one thing that people might not know about me that I ran track in high school and made it to state.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I ran sprints. I ran 100 and 200 and then 4x1. So I definitely like track.
Mm-hmm.
But I will never be a distance runner. I can't figure it out why people want to run for so long.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like ultra marathon runners who are running like 100+ miles. Like, why would you want to do that to yourself?
I know. I go up the stairs and I'm already like,
Yeah, there you go.
That's why I get some kicks out of the people. You get the ovals on the backs of cars where it's like, the 1K, the 5K. Yeah. I always get a kick out of the ones that are 0. I'm like, yep, I relate to that one.
Yeah.
There you go. 0.0.
Yeah. Yep.
all right. So is there a book, movie, or TV show that you're currently enjoying?
I started, and I don't know why, but I think I know. Well, I do know why. I started watching Stranger Things again.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because I absolutely love that show. It's on Netflix. kind of has 80s nostalgia in there with sci-fi, with kind of like coming of age, which I just really enjoy. So there's, I believe, you guys have probably watched it, right?
Yeah,
Have
I
you
haven't
guys
seen. I
watched
haven't
that?
finished the newest
No?
season, but
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I think there's 5.
Four,
to see.
five,
4 or 5, something like
Yeah.
that.
5 going
Yeah.
on 6 or 4 going on 5.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
don't
remember which
remember
one.
either.
Whatever season's coming out is the last one. I know.
Yep, yep, exactly.
So I know Stranger Things has a big D&D presence. Are you into Dungeons? and
No,
Dragons?
no, I'm not.
Would you like to be? Because you're talking to two guys who.
Yeah.
Two guys who really are.
Who are deep into it. It makes me think of like cosplay too. Are you guys into that too? Or no?
I am a little, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big guy. It's hard to find things that fit me as it is.
Yeah, there you go.
But otherwise, I like the idea of it.
Yeah.
So kind of going into that work-life balance, how do you get to maintain a work-life balance with kind of a more high-level managerial position? How do you make sure that you balance your work life in your personal life?
I have to admit that I'm not the best at it, and it kind of ebbs and flows. And fortunately, my wife is gracious enough to pick up the slack sometimes. So we have 3 kids, ranging from 5 to 13. So they're certainly involved in different types of activities. So I think what I try to do is take the opportunity to step away and help out when I can, with the understanding that there are going to be times where I just am not available to be at home. So some days it'll be working 12, 13, 14 hours from not even sun up, but before that till the sun's down. And I think that what I do, it's kind of more of a lifestyle than anything, and you kind of just figure out a way to make it work. But truly, if it wasn't for my wife, I don't know how I'd be able to keep that work-life balance, because sometimes she keeps me in check and says, hey, well, I think you need to start thinking about this, little nudges and reminders that otherwise I would just get and stay hyper-focused on something and not think about kind of the wider context of how it might impact other things.
Yeah, it's always nice to get that help from your spouse to, hey, you need to focus on this a little bit. I know, things are busy at work, and, things will always be busy at work. But, I mean, there's plenty of times when, when you're at the meetings, I'm at the meetings, or for the night meetings, and it's just like, you just kind of have to have those extra, 12, 13-hour days. But then and you kind of get home and you feel bad because, like, everyone's ready to go to bed at that point. But
right. And I think the other thing that's complicated from time to time, too, is, like, some of the things I do, I think there's a perception from my wife that it's, like, it's fun or entertaining. And it's like, no, this is just part of my job, and this is, it is maybe entertaining on some level, but it's also something I have to do to be able to kind of do the things I need to do in my job.
And then you get lucky with opportunities like this when we get to just kind of sit and
Exactly, right?
Yeah, it's one of those, tough, and the scales are trying to balance out here of, you've got an hour that you should spend on a podcast, but
yeah, exactly.
But when you think about the long term, the public is going to learn so much more about you, and it's going to be great.
Right.
So who would you say then is kind of like your biggest mentor or influence over your career?
Probably 2 people come to mind. The first is the city administrator for Waukesha, Jim Archambault. Worked with him for many years and got to build up a great relationship that we have till this day. And I think he really helped me kind of understand how all the different pieces of a full service community fit together. But then it also, at the same time, understanding that you have to make decisions in a compassionate and empathetic way and really consider not only kind of the community, but employees and how the decisions you make impact them. So he was probably one, and then the other was a guy by the name of Thad Majowski, who he was a contracted engineer that I worked with up in Buchanan for a number of years. And I think the thing that I took away from him the most is really the need to have a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do anything really well or impactful or that's going to have a long lasting impact if you don't have a plan with how to get there. So we really focused on really strategizing how we could address certain things, and I think that was probably the piece that I took away from him the most is, you need to be strategic, you need to be thoughtful about how you move forward with things. And I actually went to his retirement party this past weekend.
It's kind of, yeah. I keep hearing the people talk about retirement and knowing that it's long off in the distance, but at the same time, it's. I feel like at some point in my life, I'm going to have that moment of like, oh yeah, you were a mentor, or you had said something that was big and impactful,
right?
Which, ironically enough, that's why I just thought of that. I'm like, why did I just think of that phrase? But what was the best piece of advice that you've ever received from anyone?
I think it's pretty simple, right? It's treat others how you want to be treated. It's kind of that golden rule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that my mom always told me. And it's like the simple things, right? It's like if you go over to somebody's house, or if you go to somebody's office or something, leave the place at least how you found it or better.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I heard somebody say the platinum rule. You guys know what the platinum rule is?
I'm not familiar.
Can't say I have, or can't say I've heard it.
Treat other people how they want to be treated. Which I thought that's pretty powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not only reflecting on how you want to be treated, but also kind of, how does this person understand things?
Mm-hmm.
Meet people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest part of all of it, is just meeting people where they are and understanding what they may know and what they may not know, and try to bridge that gap so you can figure out kind of whatever it is you are trying to do together.
Yeah, no, that meeting people where they're at is one of those things too that I always very much resonate with.
Yeah.
Mentally, I just went through kind of a whiplash from that. I'm like, do I agree with that? I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. But then now I've kind of settled into especially with elections coming up, that's got to be the number one thing that people have to keep in mind is you're not going to agree with whatever you see on Facebook, but someone is coming from a different perspective of why they feel that way. So instead of attacking them and verbally berating them, it's just kind of understand where they come from. Be kind to them. Obviously, you're never going to agree on everything.
Right.
But.
Yeah, and I think to me that's kind of it applies, right? Sometimes, not all the time by any means, because there are certain situations where people are just flat out wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But you can still do that in a respectful way,
Definitely.
hopefully, without being what is it? We can be. I'm trying to think of how that statement goes. We can be disagreeable, but we don't have to be. I forget what it is.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, that's gonna bother me. I'm gonna
I feel like it's something
follow
like
up with you guys after this because
like,
I'm gonna remember it or I'll look it up.
You don't have to agree with each other, but you don't have to be friends. Kind of like that kind of a sentiment kind of a thing.
Right. Exactly.
All right, I think I'm going to throw some rapid fire questions at you now.
Oh.
So it's kind of like a this or that thing.
Okay.
Feel free to defend your point if you want at anything, or elaborate if you want.
I don't think there's anything that.
Nothing is too
I mean, what are you going to ask me here? Holy
these
cow!
are very.
There's
very
okay. I could see a couple of them
general.
where it's worth validation.
But it'll be some.
Okay.
You could definitely see some where people will be like, "What?" All right. Are you an early bird or night owl?
Depends on the circumstances, but I would say night owl.
Night owl. Okay.
Yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Tea. Oh, do I should probably. No, that's probably not one. I don't eat a lot of candy, chocolate, caffeine, like soda. Don't drink soda.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do have caffeine, and I have too much, maybe I get kind of tweaked out.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
So that's why tea. So if I have tea, it's usually something that has little or no caffeine.
Okay.
Do you have a specific tea you like to go for? Like peppermint, green,
It's usually black tea.
black tea. Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite season of the year?
I would say fall.
What is your go-to comfort food?
Oh gosh.
Could be a single item or even like a meal if there is one.
I would say macaroni and cheese because my grandma made the best macaroni and cheese, so it's kind of nostalgic for me thinking about her.
Sure. That's a good one. Cats or dogs?
Ooh, this is one that I'll have to defend.
Yeah, that's this was my first one that I thought of. That you might have to.
That's about the point I got to when you're going to defend at least one.
I would say probably dogs because you can do more with them than you probably can a cat. And I would say, too, because my grandparents, they had this jet black cat with these piercing green eyes when I was a kid. And his name was Bert. And Bert was probably the meanest cat you've ever seen. To the point where he actually clawed my face. And it was like bleeding all over the place. And ever since then, I'm not a huge fan of cats.
I can't imagine why.
Now, having said all that, my family wants a dog very badly. And I absolutely refuse to get a dog. Because, one, we go on vacations and are away from the house too much. And two, I'm going to end up taking care of it. And I don't want another thing to have to prioritize. And just the idea of walking a dog and picking up after it is not very appealing to me.
I mean, your alternative option is you get like a large cat, like a Maine Coon, where they're dog size, but they still can maintain. I mean, that we've got 2 cats at home, and we can go on like weekend vacations and just pour them extra food and don't have to worry about them.
And then my girlfriend, she wants to get a Pomeranian, so she could just put that dog in her purse and then bring her with
Like
her.
that dog is a cat. That's not for me.
That's a cat.
Yeah, right. Basically, but she's allergic to cats. So that's
there's hypoallergenic cats.
Yeah,
Russian blues.
I had a
Fuzzy
buddy
cats.
who had it was like almost like a Garfield cat.
Okay.
Where it pretty much acted like a dog. He could listen to commands. It would sit up, and you could feed it. It was just the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
One of my cats can fetch really well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you can throw a ball, he'll bring it back, and about 5 times he gets bored, and real dog life there.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
All right, keep going. Favorite holiday?
Halloween.
Okay. Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Okay. Or what? Maybe I should have put sweet, savory, or salty.
Salty.
Okay.
Salty.
Favorite sport to watch or play?
I would have to say football.
Okay.
So I'm like most of this country that football continues to see increases in their viewership while everything else is either static or decreasing.
Yeah.
Do you watch non-NFL football?
College football?
Well, college or the USFL?
USFL, I don't really get into. Like Canadian Football League, I don't think that's even on TV anymore. It
Not
was
easily.
For like a while.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to ask me, like, do you watch pickleball?
It does exist quite often. Actually,
not only is it a big thing, period, but they have like a professional pickleball league that
I'm pretty
is
sure
on
there's a
ESPN
pickleball
now.
channel as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Like I think what is the channel that Amazon has now? They've got some sort of an app where it's just they're all their free stuff, and there's one that's almost always just pickleball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always get a kick out of ESPN, though, because I remember, I don't know if you guys recall the movie Dodgeball.
I love that movie.
Where it was like ESPN the Ocho, and
every-
now they have
I think
an
it's
Ocho.
every 4th of July weekend, I think, is they do the Ocho. So it's, long distance cherry pit spitting, stone skipping up in Mackinac Island.
Oh, my God.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They've got dodgeball. They've got the Excel Championship. So that's a hoot to watch that one. Everyone's
man.
given a prompt, and they have to code out what to do with it. I think last year it was like coding out an actually working slot machine in Excel.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that existed.
It's a hoot, yeah.
Yeah, people are serious about their Excel
Tractor
now.
pulls. I think tractor pulls are on there.
I could get with that. Tractor pulls.
Lawnmower races,
The only crazy thing I've seen was like drone racing.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's crazy. All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
I'm not a huge fan of ice cream, but if I had to say, maybe Moose Tracks.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite frozen treat that isn't ice cream?
No.
Okay.
No. Not really.
Would you say you're more introverted or extroverted?
Introverted.
Okay. Favorite type of music?
Well, I am a kind of 90s kid, so I would probably say like rap music.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite group or band or?
I'd say kind of more current would probably be like Bruno Mars.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of some other ones. So Bruno Mars, gosh, I can't even think of other ones. I have a list in Spotify of like 1,000 songs.
Sure.
So it runs the gamut. So, I mean, I went through, I don't know if you guys have done this with music too, like go through different periods where it's
100%.
oh, I really love jazz right now. I'm going to listen to everything jazz.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or R&B, I'm going to listen to a bunch of R&B. So, like, for the longest time, and I still think to some degree now, like, listening to kind of like that Rat Pack era, like Frank Sinatra,
Sure,
Dean
yeah.
Martin, some of those individuals. That's always something that I like to listen to, too.
Okay. Favorite color?
Carolina Blue.
Carolina blue. All right. Is that more of like a royal blue, or is that more of sky blue? I don't
Light blue, sky blue.
Light sky blue.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So my
Like-
family is from Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
So I always thought, like, as a kid, I would go to UNC. But then as I got older, it just wasn't for me. But ever since then, growing up, UNC basketball, watch it like crazy.
So what's your opinion on Duke?
I don't care for Duke.
I would
I
imagine
don't
not.
care for Duke at all. I mean, gosh. But, hey, they got a new coach, and they're still doing well.
For reference for you, since I know you're not much of a sports person.
No, not at all.
It's a rivalry.
Okay.
They're both. It's what they're in Durham.
Yeah, it's the Research Triangle.
Okay.
So there's like all these, like UNC, Duke, and then I think Wake Forest is pretty close too.
I think so. Yeah. And then there's NC State, but no one's offended by NC
The
State.
Wolf Pack.
Yeah. No one generally gets offended by NC State for whatever reason. They just exist.
I learned something else today.
Yay
you
sport.
go.
Yay sports ball. Yeah.
Yep.
You got that learning mindset. I love it.
Exactly. All right, two final questions. These ones are the little bit longer ones ish. Well, Andrew, do you want to ask that first one in the fun questions? The
Oh, you're
second
gonna
last
make
one?
him.
Yeah. Just,
You came up with it.
Oh, yeah. So, one of the things I've kind of latched onto is I saw that you had a Back to the Future poster in your office, and so I wanted to ask you if you could time travel, where would you go in the past or the future?
So I would go to the future, right? Because the past, you can research it, you can read about it, you kind of know what happened, and maybe there's interesting historical events that you could want to see. But at the same time, the future, you never know what's going to happen. So
Right.
it'd be fascinating to see kind of, okay, what does Waukesha look like in 2100 or wherever?
You say how far would you risk going into the future, not knowing if you could come back?
Oh gosh, I think a couple hundred years.
Couple hundred? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's always the big philosophical question. They're like, if I go ahead,
How far
1,000
ahead
years,
do I go? Yeah.
will the Earth exist? Will the sun have exploded?
Yeah, exactly.
You start getting existential on yourself. Like, all right, will anything be there if I go 2,000 years? Will it have cycled around again? Will it?
Yeah. That's like I watched the movie Greenland over the weekend, and like the whole plot is that there's basically a comet that's coming to hit the Earth. It's gonna be basically an Earth killer, existential event. So then you start thinking, well, what if I went and it was like 2 years after that happened?
Right.
So I would go to the future for sure. What about you guys? Would you go to the future or past?
I don't know. I'm never ready for these questions to be thrown back at us.
Yeah. I think I'd go near future. Not
future?
Not terribly far,
Like what,
but
40, 50 years or
I'm thinking a couple hundred.
couple hundred?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's one of those what would change potentially, if I had kids, what would change in their lifetime kind of a thing, or like things I could start influencing now to to stop, butterfly effect kind of things. Is like if I made my way back, like what things could that didn't go out so well, is there anything that could have been done, or is it like can it start from a single person making a change? Or,
Did AI take over the world?
Yeah, right.
is everything turning into WALL-E, where AI has taken over the world and it's kind of okay, and we're living in ships, and
Yeah, I always wonder about that too, because the way that technology is just kind of transforming things so rapidly. Like even if you went out 100 years, I think like society would be drastically different than it is today.
I mean, they've talked with prisoners who have been in jail for 30, 40, 50 years, and the world that they left going into prison and the world they come out to, and it's so hard to adapt because in that time frame, it's just technology is so different. I mean, if you think, if I even think about like how life was when I was growing up versus now, we didn't have the internet when I was growing up. We were still using card catalogs when I was growing up. And this is just the 90s.
Well, yeah, that makes me think of those BuzzFeed lists where they go back and they look at, if you could tell how old you are by identifying all these things, and then it'll be like a huge like wooden box that's a TV. Oh my gosh, you guys use that? What?
Yeah, and it weighed 500 pounds. If you wanted to move it anywhere, it was an ordeal.
You could pull muscle in your back and all that.
Yeah.
But ironically, moving it is part of the solution of, okay, you've hurt your back, now you're going to watch it the rest of the day.
Right.
All right, and then final question that we have. We talked about going to the future, but now, if you could go back in time and tell your younger self some words of advice, what would you say?
I think probably one thing is to live in the moment, but take things a little bit more seriously. So I will profess that I wasn't necessarily the most academic minded when I was younger. And I think if I would have been, it would have maybe allowed me to have more opportunities than what I've had in my life. And I think that's one thing that I always try to say to my 13-year-old son, but he probably, well, I know he doesn't really care about certain things right now, right? Because it's all about, I want to hang out with my friends and enjoy kind of what we're doing. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just kind of taking a step back, appreciating the moments and the people that you're with, but also kind of really starting to kind of think about the future and be a little bit more serious about kind of what that looks like.
Perfect.
Great.
I think that's a great place to end it then.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Yes.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Talkin' Waukesha. We hope you enjoyed diving into the heart of our city with us.
If you have a story to share or just want to say hello, reach out to us on social media at City of Waukesha on Facebook. We love hearing from our listeners.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review if you enjoyed the conversation. It really helps us spread the word.
As always, thanks for tuning in to Talkin' Waukesha, where every conversation springs to life.